When I have anxiety, I literally will hold my hand the way I wish somebody would have every time I have it. Your trauma, don't hate yourself for it.
Hi, Rituparna.
Hi, Prachi. So lovely to be here.
So lovely to have you and have this wonderful book that you have written, which is what we're here to talk about today. So, you are a writer, journalist, and now an author of this beautiful, brave, haunting memoir. And you're working on another book as well. So, tell me about it. This book talks about, it's so personal, and it talks about such painful events in your life: loss, grief, multiple losses, sexual abuse, this journey of a child with no anchor, really. There's no anchor in this child's life. So tell me about um, why you decided to write this book and what it was like.
So before this, I had written another book, also a memoir, that was on the life of the actor Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I seem to have I don't know, a thing with memoirs, because also my column is very memoirish. It's on my life. So I didn't start out thinking First of all, I was trying to write something else. It was not going anywhere. Then I thought I'll make this a novel, but then everybody insisted that it be a memoir. And that's very obvious. The last portion, forgiveness, because it gives real answers, which are really missing everywhere in the world. So there is no book like this, which gives you solutions. There are enough on the tragedy of abuse. That's how the book was never planned. I don't think anybody in their right frame of mind will write. But as I have by now discovered, unless you're writing some strategic book or something like very typical nonfiction, politics, economics, we don't choose. A lot of it just comes. We are writing from the subconscious. So I guess this was always there. Any process of art, I will not call all books art. In fact, majority of what sells are not art. There's beauty to it, there's craft to it, but it's strategic. It's got other things going on. But there's poetry, there's fiction, there's all kinds of art that just does come from the subconscious, something we cannot really control. And so that's how the Water Phoenix happened. Everybody thought that it might have been very painful, but it wasn't at all painful for me because I had already healed by the time I'd written about it. Yeah, if I hadn't, then it would have been painful. So it wasn't even cathartic. It was just, it's out there. And this is why the dedication of the book, I don't know if you can see it, it's for each child that has been abused. I mean, it's my memoir, but I always say it's not about me. And the fact that it has done so well, the fact that so many people have come and said, this is that's why we write, that's why we create art, is because 1 billion children were abused only sexually. We're not even talking about the rest, all over the world, only in 2019 alone. And this book deals with a lot of abandonment, which you mentioned, emotional abuse. And one thing that is written even on the book cover, it talks about the countless victims, not who have been abused, but who feel abused. Now, this is completely different. This is where we today have terms like gaslighting, and it's always with children, right? You will distract them from crying, from negative emotion, because it's too much for us to handle. That's another story altogether. All of modern society's emotional abuse, we are all constantly abandoned at some level or another. Or you don't have to have someone leave you or cheat on you to feel betrayed. So this book deals about all of that. And it's also got a lot of lightness and adventure and, small town India and tons of animals and magic. And so it's not just all dark. It's just that they coexist just like in life. And it was kind of fun to visit those parts also.
But as I was listening to you, I was reminded of something that another writer and actor once told me, that artists of any form, whether you're a writer or a painter or an actor, we're a medium. Yes. We're just channels, and our job is to put something, whatever comes to us through wherever, into words or on the canvas.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that. I'm also a painter. In fact, this is not my painting, but the idea was mine. I made a painting for the idea of the cover. The process is exactly the same. And even in acting, I wrote a book on Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I was a shadow for 6 months. Like literally, I followed him everywhere. So I would tell him, it's like, there's method acting, there's method writing. And even now, the novel I'm writing, I'm like, I don't know where the synchronicity, the whatever you want to call it, it's like where life ends, where the book begins. I cannot. It is a natural state. Like Picasso said, to create art, you have to remember to be a child.
I think when you were writing the book, you said that it wasn't like you had to relive the trauma in order to write the book, because you had already done your share of healing. But were there incidents moments, memories that you may have suppressed or forgotten that kind of resurfaced while working on the book?
What I did not realize is just how deeply my mother dying had impacted me. And the most painful part in this whole book was where I find out that my mother has died. I'm 4.5. I don't know this is if she's asleep, is this a dead body, what is it? I don't know. This is my first brush with death. Now the editor wanted it to be logical. I mean, this is a 4.5-year-old who's hyper imaginative. She thinks this is a raft. To go back and forth over email to prove, to validate that this is how I discovered my mother's death, I cannot tell you how traumatic that was. And of course they were right, this is logical, this is how it should be. I mean, there's nothing logical. That's when the book turned into, I think, a magic realism memoir. I realized how important it is that, to fight for the point of view of the child where nothing makes sense. And this is cookie cutter of anybody who has been abused. It takes them a few years to figure out they've been abused. It'll take them 10 years to even know what has happened. Then your body's screaming, then you process. This is if you're dedicated to the path. Most will shut it down and say, I'm not sensitive. That everything society is, I'm a survivor, I'm a fighter, I'm in whatever you want to call it. Those dogs who are trained to fight, they're very ferocious versus these cuddly creatures we have at home where we be scared of a cockroach. It's the same species. It's which one you choose. So I choose to be that dog who is at home. But I know many people and I have been hurt and I can see the pain. But now I've come to a point where I'm like, go burn. It's none of my business. If this is what you've chosen, I'm not going to let it hurt me. But the body is screaming with crazy aches and pains. But no, I'll do this. I'm a fighter. I'm a survivor. Because that's the message society gives us. Fight it. This is a cancer survivor. This one has survived this. I mean, anything is fighter, survivor. Those are medals, trophies.
That's a great analogy, though. I think I'm going to use it. The cuddly dog and the fighter dog. I think that's so apt.
It takes a lot more courage to stay pure, gentle, and innocent. That takes a lot more courage than go out and be this, whatever you want to call it, survivor, macho, whatever. I think it's worse with men because all the patriarchy and then all this toxic masculinity. So I always say abuse in that way is probably harder on men or women who choose to take that same energy. You can be bitter and use it as fuel, which works very well in careers, or you can be true to yourself and find a middle path and still be tough without killing yourself from inside. Baby, a newborn, or the smaller they are, is the most defenseless creature on the planet. I mean, they cannot even hold their neck up, but they are the most selfish, most manipulative things ever. With their cuteness, they get everything they want. They are so selfish, my goodness. They are so manipulative, but they are not being tough and bitter, and they get what they want. That is our natural state. This is only a problem with human beings because whatever we suppress goes into our subconscious, and then all dark art is made for that, which then people will find cathartic. And they'll win awards.
Would you say writing the book was cathartic for you in any way?
Not at all. Not at all. The current novel I'm writing is that has been very scary for me. I mean,
can you tell us a little bit what it's about?
That one is based in California, and a lot of it is derived from my column, California Dreaming for the Economic Times, which was about an immigrant mother in Trump's America with shooter drills for kindergartners. I mean, it's crazy. We're teaching 5-year-olds how to protect themselves against shooters. It's properly done. There's a militarized police on campus. I mean, they're screaming. They're so afraid. But we won't ban guns. We're finding it so surreal. I mean, we're teaching them to physically throw furniture at shooters, but we won't ban them. They're fine. It came out of that space. So that's the political parallel, but it was also born out of the trauma that women's bodies hold. So just like the Water Phoenix is about kids, that's about women's body. You have a lot of female Uber drivers here. I've had them open up to me about their miscarriages, their abortions, and how they feel. And this goes unsaid. There's so much, and you don't have to be whatever married and have kids. Many women may have had abortion. What that does to them, the trauma they carry, where it plays out. So very similar to child abuse. Even if they chose it, what made them choose that? I'm just saying about the theme, but it's a lot more, and it's very deep into magical realism. So it goes to various places. Some set here, some set in Bengal.
And the other common theme here really is grief and loss, right? Because abortion, miscarriage, whether it's voluntary or not, it is a huge loss, and that just like child sexual abuse is this invisible loss that the society doesn't have any place for.
That's exactly why we create art. Whatever we talked about in society, that's why we read, that's why we watch, something. movies. That's why art exists.
Because grief looks very different on different people. It's not time bound. There's no right or wrong way to process grief or to let it surface. And I wonder if grief ever stops.
Many ways, you're right. Grief never ends, but nothing ends. We have to decide that it's okay. I had written a column on depression. The depression is like the weather, it comes and it goes. When it is there, it's there. When it isn't there, it isn't there. But that's how it is with all kinds of grief. We have to understand it's just a part of life, and it is a completely valid emotion, just like love or happiness. I mean, we don't sit and analyze why am I happy. Stop analyzing why are we grieving. It's okay. Just sit with it, let it go. Don't attach meaning. It's just a part of life. But I would completely disagree that this book is about grief. This is about radical self-love. Throughout, she understands what is love, but it is the lens of grief and abandonment which gives that child that focus, because there's really no help. There's no caregiver whatsoever. There's like only books to escape into, and just magical worlds, just imagination. So I would say the book is about love and not grief, and about very radical self-love. In fact, I happen to be really good at dealing with death, because people think I'm heartless, but because of what I went through at 4.5 and constantly being abandoned. And it's not that I don't have sympathy. It's just that personally, I become very, very okay with it. The one book that has had the most profound impact on me is Chaterjee. There's this concept of Wu Wei, which is again the way of nature. We don't cling, we don't hold on. Everything is transient. Everything that all the philosophies say, once you start living like that, life becomes very peaceful.
I think one thing that really stands out for me is the resilience of this child in the book in particular, and the resilience of children in general.
Yeah, so I have a little boy. It was very important for me to protect his sensitivity. Here in California, we're ahead of the whole planet. I'm saying California, not America. Always America is Haryana. Nothing against it, but it's the sensibility is very similar. Here, gender is more and more becoming a matter of choice and expression. We see boys wearing tutu skirts and crowns, and nobody making fun of them, and that's a beautiful thing. They can be, maybe they'll grow out of it, maybe they won't, but that is a form of expression. We've always welcomed girls being tomboys. For me, it was very important that he be rooted in his sensitivity, so that when he grows up, there are those kids who will get into drugs or be part of a car crash because whatever's going on in there. And there'll be the kid who's so tuned into their sensitivity and have the strength to say, no, I don't need to go right now, because they have that resilience within themselves, which did not come from being tough, which came from being very soft and gentle and sensitive. That's all I wanted for him. That is the resilience of this girl also. She had to fend for herself.
As I'm reading the book, I can relate so strongly to this sense of being on guard all the time. I think
you're an Indian woman.
Yeah. And I remember reading that passage and I'm like, I haven't experienced abuse firsthand, other than your, in public transport or whatever, hand brushing against your thigh. Like, that's the extent of it.
Yeah, and we're talking like it's such a blessing that you have. How sad is that?
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. But I have to put it in that context, right? I don't know how else to talk about this. But as I read this book, and when I read that passage in particular, I remember like pausing and thinking, I can relate to this feeling of paranoia and just being on guard. You felt like you had to be on alert at all times.
All the times, yes. And I had to be, because even teachers, there's a teacher there, right? I was never into sport. I was scared of ball until 8 months ago. Like how long it lasts, even when you heal. Like I've been so scared of sport. I've never been athletic. So
and you didn't swim for so many years.
It took me 30 plus years to be able to, and I love water. I'm always by the pool. This book was written by the pool. My own place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm always by the pool. In fact, I just feel the need to have water around me to be able to write. It helps me focus. It's strange that way. All the time I'm by water. I'm in the swimsuit. I'm by water. I'm just not swimming. So I thought I'd learn, but after the pandemic, I'll finally learn. That'll be like a new life.
It's like there was always something inside you telling you to heal, right?
Every second, body will scream every second. It's just how much we listen to it. But what I'm trying to say is someone like me who still listens, and that's why I say this book is not about grief or loss. It's about love, because This book is life, minute to minute, and that is my healing journey. Just like you would take care of a little baby, we need to do that to ourselves. Adrenaline is so overrated. I remember when I wanted to be a journalist, I went into the CNBC office, I went into the NDTV office, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this just this adrenaline rush. It's the same reason that people go on roller coaster. Like, I want to be a part of it. What an adventure. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I went into print, that into features, because with all the stuff I was going all through and not aware of it, I would have probably had a breakdown. I'm just saying that adrenaline is unnecessary, but it drives our world today. It's a fight or flight reaction that was from our caveman days. There's a tiger, fight or flight. Do I run? Do I hide in my cave? We do not need it. And yet we are using it more than ever before. Oh my God, I didn't get my text message back. Brain survival. We have so much PTSD and trauma. We don't need to be abused. We are born into abuse. I always say distraction is, destruction. There are people I know who are, I really respect them for certain whatever things, but they are, I don't know, in their 40s, 50s, they're still on social media. I can see them, they're online 24/7. It's an addiction. It's no less than cocaine. That's the opposite of self-love. You've chosen distraction. And if you have not chosen to sit with yourself, how can anyone else? The other thing is nobody else can heal us. And I think that's where this book is different. I'm not saying people shouldn't go to therapy. Please go. But even that is a choice. I have taken those therapy methods and done it on myself, which means anybody can. This is like the worst of the worst if you cannot afford a therapist. Your therapist appointment will be next week. Your panic attack is not going to wait. No, that's going to happen right now. We will say, we're middle class, we're family, everything's about family. What is family if you cannot be happy in who you are? And this is a constantly changing battle, or whatever you want to call it, because it's a question of identity. Who are you?
Wanting to be the gentle, open person after trauma is a conscious choice that one makes. How did it begin, your journey of healing?
Because I was always that person anyway. I was always very gentle and very sensitive, and an introvert, or completely within myself. That was the only way I knew. Anybody who has healed will know that first, healing never ends, because life never ends. Didn't have a choice. I was losing my mind. Nobody will sit and heal themselves. It's too difficult. It's much easier to shut down and be a survivor, fighter, whatever the society is screaming at us. Healing is also a label.
What would you like to then tell someone who's trying to bring their life together or heal in some way, or may have suffered some trauma? What would you like to tell them?
Well, first, every human being has trauma. We all have PTSD. We are born into trauma. What I would like to tell them is that your trauma, don't hate yourself for it. First and foremost, finding yourself. Who are you? What is this identity? Is it even yours? No, it's what you were taught. It's what you taught yourself, what your parents taught you, what you learned from the movies. But smoking was so elegant. I mean, I don't smoke. I smoked briefly in college. But I thought it was the most elegant thing. And even now we see cigars as a sign of wealth and power, elegance, sophistication in men. Who taught us all this? Are our tastes even our own? Like, nothing is our own. Identity is a construct. Problem is of identity. So first, if anyone wants to heal, understand this. This means we are just like kids. Every day is Halloween. You can choose any costume, pick one consciously, be willing to shed it when it has run its course. Second is minute to minute, be present with yourself. And meditation does this. You watch your thoughts. And there's a process here called emotional vipassana, where you sit with the emotion and you watch it. Just like in Vipassana, we watch sensations in our body, and in Anapana, we watch our breath. We just allow it to be. We're not adding the burden of meaning, because that's like pouring gasoline on a wildfire. When I have anxiety, I literally will hold my hand the way I wish somebody would have every time I have it. Just be prepared every minute. Oh, how are you? Like, give yourself a nickname or something. Treat yourself like a baby. That is real self-love, not buying yourself the latest iPhone, which again will be redundant, and again marketing will decide, and again you will save up and do whatever. So that's not self-love. That may be what society has taught as self-love. This is radical self-love. We are obsessed with romantic relationships because we think that person will hold our hand, and the one time they don't, oh my God. And they're humans, so they won't. And probably the more we are focused on, they're not, so then they won't. So you have to do that for yourself.
Everything that we discussed today was just so inspiring and so much to think about. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Prachi. This was so lovely. Such a heartfelt chat, and I hope it's useful to your viewers. And yeah, please read the Water Phoenix. You'll be able to find, especially in the last chapter, the last part, all the tools that really worked. And it's really easy. I promise you, within 1 hour, your whole life will shift. Whether you have food views or not. And it's so easy. You will be like, why didn't I do this before? It's truly a miracle.
Yeah. And it's such a fun read also, because There's of course a
monkeys,
lot of dark stuff, but there's this
a lot of fun.
very innocent, childlike quality to. Of course, it's from
Yeah.
a child's perspective, so that has to be there. But it is,
Yeah. There's
yeah,
all these monkeys eating up homework. There's a ton of wild animals.
yeah.
It's a trip. I think I had a really fun childhood. I don't think many kids had that growing up in small towns and forests all over India. It's really, really lucky.